I've gonna get just a couple things set up here quick, and we'll be off and running. All right, we're back. So, been about a week since I first attempted streaming here. Got a new microphone, new camera. Things are rocking. I'll be honest. Wasn't really planning on streaming this morning. Been a little stressed out over the amount of things I have to do. Not totally in the mood to do this, but we're gonna push through anyway. Because that's what we have to do in the indie dev world, is work when we don't feel like working. So I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to work on a couple pieces of, I'd say marketing art, but actually these are going to be used in the game. We don't know exactly how yet, but when you get the gold rewards, somehow these are going to show up. I got to do the user interface design for where exactly how on screen they're going to show, but our lead artist Chad Felposh has really created some cool pieces of art here. So we're gonna take this this drawing here today. We're gonna go for as long as I can stand it. Maybe we'll finish them. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll move on and do a second one. We'll just go and see what happens here. So yeah, let me know if you're here. I'd like to see you in the chat. Otherwise, we'll just get going. So the first thing I usually do is lay down some base color. So we've got our basic black and white drawing here. I've got a background on it, but we're going to remove that by the time we're done. I've got my library here, my bots library. It's got a lot of extra colors in it I don't need from way back when I was still trying to pick the colors for the bots. But we know our main character Robayu here pretty well, so we know which colors he uses. So our main base color I'm going to lay down here is the blue. We're going to use my automated process to do that. So I'm going to hit, I've got a couple actions set up. My first action highlights everything on the outside, selects everything outside them, and then I've got a manual step here that I got to jump in and do, and that's get any of these white spaces that are kind of blocked in from that first selection. We want to try to, whoops, we want to try to get all those knocked out. It'll just make our lives easier later on. So there we go. I've got a couple things I'm going to have to address, but they're too small. I'm going to have to fix them up once the automated part does its deal. Okay, that looks good. So the second part of this, and I'm going to have to do this part manually down here. You'll see what I mean in a second. So the second part of this, you can see I've set up a group. It's done the selection. My next part is where all the magic happens. I hit F7 on my keyboard, and it kind of fills everything in without me doing too much. So I mentioned on a previous stream, I should fix the actions one of these days, but I really got another manual step now that I've learned. I used to think I could fully automate this thing, but there's a lot of hand holding you got to do with Photoshop. It doesn't do everything perfect. But if you use it right, it can save you a ton of time. So what I'm going to do now is clean up this blue that it laid down. Like I said, there's going to be some spots. So I'm going to pick my eraser There's going to be some spots that it couldn't quite pick up correctly. So I've got my eraser, I'm on the wrong layer. Back here to my base. And I'm just going to get rid of a few small spots. Also, you can see with the selection, it doesn't always pick up these really concave areas. So I've learned to kind of watch for those, and I usually miss a few. I'll get to coloring the rest of him, and we'll see later that I'll probably have missed some, but I kind of know what I'm looking for here now. So again, my process is just zoom in, zoom out, see what's going on. And we're trying to clean this up. When this layer is done, we're going to make a layer mask that's going to apply to everything else we do after that. That'll mean I don't have to worry at all about going outside the lines because we're going to mask it and Photoshop won't show it. And not that we don't like staying in the lines, but it just saves us a lot of time if we don't have to worry about it. You know, I could do it perfectly. And when I first started doing this, that's what I was doing. I was spending gobs of hours, you know, delicately doing the outside lines there. And I've got better things to do. I've got lots of stuff to do on this game, so there's other ways we can be spending our time. So I like that. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to save this part for later. Actually, I might even leave it like that. I kind of like the way it is. What I want to do is create this in such a way that it's going to fit. Some of these graphics are really cool in of themselves, and we want to be able to place them on a web page or even on a t-shirt or something and have them stand by themselves. So these page edges I want to kind of stay away from and not have anything too hard. So I think I'm going to actually leave these action lines just as a line. I thought about coloring them in, but I think I'm not going to do that. And you'll see by the end we'll have a pretty cool looking picture here. So what, like I said, I'm going to create a mask here. Now I've got this shading group that the automation created, and if I control click on my blue layer here, you can see I highlighted all my base layer. With that selected, I'm going to hit the mask on that layer, and now no matter what I do within that folder, it's not going to go outside the lines. Again, it saves me a ton of time. So I'm going to start down here, and the first thing we're going to do is just add all his different colors. He's got like 4 different colors we got to add in. Pretty simple compared to some of the bosses. It should go quicker than the last couple that I've done. Those have taken like 3 hours to do. This I should be able to whip out much faster. So the next color I'm going to do is his gray color, and he has gray in some of his accent pieces and his gauntlets here. Actually, in this drawing, since his legs are gone, we don't have that much to do. So I'm going to switch over to my hard brush. Everything for the base layers is a hard brush. We don't want to blend anything. This is a comic book style. So we're going to get right in there. And I'm going to mess with my brush size, and we're going to be on our way. So again here, like last time, I'm trying to get good coverage so that I cover up all the royal blue there. I'm not going to worry about, I am going to sweat when it comes into contact with the blue, but when I know other colors are going to overlay it, like here, I can mess that up and I don't care because my layers are going to cover it up later. So I'll just leave that, and that'll probably really bug some people. You know, everybody that's watching right now. I do think I have the setting on the stream right to actually record this, so what I'm hoping is, even if nobody follows me right at the moment, maybe some people will check out this stream on replay. See what happens. I don't like to give too much notice because I'm not a professional streamer. I know that's the way you do it, but as an indie developer, I don't have the luxury of knowing when I'm going to have the time to do what. So we stream when we feel like it. It's kind of a secondary goal right now. Main thing is just to get some of this art done. So I think that's actually all the gray. Usually I have a lot more than that, but that's all of the dark gray I have for this one. Cool. Moving on. We're going to do the light gray. This is kind of his body color, so to speak. So his... Oh, I did miss a dark gray. Hold that thought. His mouthpiece here needs to be his COVID-19 mask. He was wearing this before it was cool. Alright, now, like I was saying, we're going to jump to his light gray. This is kind of like the arm and leg and body color that we use. So here, again, I'm not going to worry about things that are going to get covered up, but I am going to worry about things that are underneath that are already laid down. So now I got to be careful of that darker gray. And the screw colors are this lighter blue. That's why I didn't fill it completely in before. These shoulder pieces. This big old screw head on his torso is light blue. I gotta get used to starting to use my preset buttons on my Cintiq again. Saves me some time, but I always forget to use them. I wish they felt a little more tactile like the keyboard. Sometimes there's just a little bit of mushiness with the Wacom buttons. Probably have no idea what I'm talking about. That's alright. Alright. This one's going to go quick because a lot of his lower body is this yellow color that we use to represent all of his power-ups, his kind of advanced features. So we don't have too many details to worry about before we get into the fun parts, so that's cool. It's a big shift from what we did last week with those bosses. Took us a lot of time, a lot of details. Also, the base image of this size. This image we're drawing at 1920 by 1080, which is just standard 1080p. We drew the other ones much bigger because they have to be potentially going lots of different situations, so we always start big. You can always shrink a detail piece. You can't manufacture detail from a small piece. So these ones we're pretty comfortable with just being a screen size. We're not going to use them for anything too much beyond that. Let's see. Actually, I think that's still just the blue. So we're gonna... Okay, I think we're good with that color. Next, we're going to do our red, which is his accent color. Those colors are reversed for player 2. So we're talking about things like these little lines and his scarf. Pretty much that's it for this drawing. I like it. Maybe we'll get to more than one of these. I do have my pressure sensitivity turned on today. We needed a reboot last week, so we got that going. So you can see I can make a tiny line or a fat line just depending on my pressure, which helps a lot in these tight areas. I can just ease up on the pressure a little bit and not have to switch my brush size every 2 seconds, which is nice. I don't know. For years, I've known that I press really hard just by default. When I didn't really even know that was something special about me, but when I talk to other artists, they always remark how hard I'm pressing, and I don't know why that is. I like to make really dark strokes, I guess. I always got to remind myself to ease up because there's a lot more. Your options are limited when you press so hard. You can build up things a lot more if you take a softer stroke, but as my bandmates will know, I am Thunderstroke. All right. It's not just the art, it's guitar strings I constantly break. I just play hard, what can I say? Never mind my appearance. It's my quarantine special. Look pretty grubby. Probably should care since I'm streaming, but I don't. So you can see here with that what that mask is doing for us. I can draw all over here, and it's actually laying down that color, but you can't see it because that handy mask takes care of it for me. So I don't have to be real careful, which means when I zoom, I can zoom out, make my brush huge, and have the scarf done in no time, as opposed to agonizing over every little bit. So that's how we make time. You zoom out and you do the big areas, and then you zoom in to get the detail. Again, I got pressure sensitivity, so I can kind of navigate in there. Then I'm going to drop my brush size in and zoom in. And that's pretty much all. That's probably what you'll spend the most time doing with digital art, is zooming out and zooming in and changing brush sizes. Even as I watched other people do it, a lot of it is just that willingness to get in and work on the details. Just don't be afraid of it. Just keep going further. More detail, more shading. Looks like I missed a little bit in there. Clean that up while we're here. There. I think that's all the red. I really wish I had made some different decisions back in the day, but it's too late now. I would have liked to do all these lines as red too, but I've already done too many drawings, and I'm not going to revisit that, so we're going to live with it. All right, now I'm going to lay down our last color. So his visor is this gold color. And then, like I said, any of Rubayu's special abilities, like this drill. This is one of the, I should probably mention that since I haven't already. The drawing we're making today is this super drill ability. You don't start out the game being able to do the drill, but when you unlock it through the Cobra Bot stage by beating it in a certain time, you can unlock the drill and then the super drill. So in midair you can kind of press down and attack and attack stuff below you, which is kind of a source of difficulty prior to earning that upgrade. So here again, because I've got this all masked, I'm going to just make my brush huge. And we're just going to smother it. And I'll actually just lay it all down. I'll clean that up later. But you can see we've got our flats already. That took like several hours last week with Jorkio and Chernobot. We've already got our flat on our first drawing. Sweet. So I don't need this layer. I'm going to get rid of it. Again, I like to keep all my colors on separate layers. It's kind of a holdover. I guess I don't need to do it as much on these one-off pieces, but actually I do. If I wanted to change this to a picture of Rubayu, his the Player 2 version, it's really easy to just I can go down here and say I could turn this blue into red just by clicking this layer style. And I'm not going to do all the details, but you can see I can flip it really quick to the palette swap. So we're not going to worry about that right now, but I have that ability if I want to take this marketing arc and maybe I want to show two of them together, or I want Bytron Player 2 to be doing the drill while Rubayu is doing something else. We have those options, so keeping our layers separate really makes life easy when we do that. So now we're right into the fun part. We're only like 10 minutes in, and we get to do the cool stuff. So last week I mentioned, I should stop referencing last week. Nobody was here. You guys don't care. There were some people here, but I see a mistake I gotta fix real quick. A little too much gray right there. Okay. I don't know exactly what I was going to say, but the secret to all my comic book drawings, just the method we've kind of made for Bot Gaiden, is hard colors, and then I do a layer of these soft light blends. So in my automation, you'll notice these aren't normal blended. These are soft light layers. And I'm just going to use plain old black and white, black for my shadow and white for my highlight. And the soft light really does a nice job with the coloring. Saves me a lot of heartache in picking out colors. So we like to do, for these first few steps, we're going to do a little bit of polish after that with some soft brush. But right now with our Freeform pen, we're going to use that because it's going to create vector shapes. So they really get, in the Freeform pen, kind of automatically does some smoothing that I like. That saves me a lot of time. So we're going to get in here, and I'm just going to pick a spot. Usually somewhere towards the top, but it depends. So I'm going to pick on his eyes, and I'm just going to start in with my shading. And we're just picking spots that look like they should be obscured by objects obscuring the light. Most of the time I pick my... What happened there? Oh. So these last three are not right, so I'm deleting them. We're supposed to have this set. Photoshop likes to be fussy. But when I combine shapes, I keep it all in one layer. And then as we add more, you'll see I'm just editing that one layer, and it's very manageable. So what I was saying is I usually, for Bot Gaiden, usually my light source is the upper left. I mean, different situations might call for different things, but... And I don't worry about being too realistic. Mostly, I just try to get stuff that looks cool. Doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm just picking my spots here. I'm picturing where the shadows would be most prominent. I'm kind of mimicking some of the lines Chad has already provided for me. You can see I'm just adding to this same layer. It's okay to overlap from the lines because that's what would happen in real life. You know, that shadow wouldn't just show on this piece, it'd show down here. And I'm just making stuff up. I mean, like I said, this isn't necessarily... This was a real 3D robot. We're not trying to make a 3D model robot. If we wanted to do that, we'd use 3D modeling tools. We're trying to make a comic book look. And so we're just picking our spots. And I've done a lot of these, so I've kind of, you know, early on... There's a lot of exploration with what's going to be our style for the... Well, that didn't turn out very good. What's going to be our style for this game, and so a lot of what you see here is quick because I've already established kind of patterns that I'm going to keep coming back to when I do these. So the further along you are in a project, the faster it should go if you're doing it right. Because we have to wear so many hats... it's important that we save time because I got lots to do on this game. I have a ton of respect for anybody that does this. You know, I already did have respect as a artist and musician, but having done it, our game isn't all that big, but there's just a massive amount of effort involved. So, you know, be nice to artists and game makers and stuff. They're not out to screw you. Stuff just takes time, and people really put their heart and soul into it. Again, if they're doing it right, they do. Okay. So, we're just going. I like this part because you can see the drawing really start to come to life once you start adding in the shade. I like to start with shade first. Highlight's nice too, but shading gives me a good foundation. I just feel like it gets me the quickest towards every step of the way. You want to do the next thing that makes it look the best and just keep going, so it keeps me enthused to start with shading. So I'm just going to keep finding spots. Down here we're going to kind of light up the drill part later. It's not going to be a black outline. But I'm going to worry about that in a little bit. I do want to add some shading. Even though it's lit up, I still want to kind of imply 3D shape. So I'm still going to add a little bit of shading. I'm going to actually like override it a lot with how we light it up later, but I still want to give it the appearance that it's a solid object. And, you know, I leave these gaps to kind of symbolize metal. I don't know if it's the best way to do that, but, you know, I just kind of think about with metallic surfaces, different areas are going to refract the light differently. And obviously, if you were doing a realistic painting, it would look a lot different than this, but these are kind of just the shortcuts I've developed for shorthanding and symbolizing those things, getting across that it's metal without agonizing over it. Alright, I think I just need to do a couple things on the scarf, and we've got our first layer of shading. Usually with these bigger pieces, I do 2 layers of shading. One for the basics, and then another one just to hammer home the deep shade. Again, I'm not doing anything special here. I'm just, mostly with this art, we're just trying to do things that we think will look cool. Doesn't have to be the most realistic. We are thinking a little bit about where the light's going to hit, but at the end of the day, we want it to look appealing to the people viewing it. So there's my first layer of shade. You can see it starting to come to life. Now we're going to go in there in places where we really think the shade's getting deep, like in these screw heads. The soft light is nice because it blends on top of itself. So it's actually blending with the previous soft light layer, so it gives me this nice striation of colors here. So now again, because it's metal, you know, there's just going to be these slivers where it hits even darker. It's just kind of how we shorthand this. I'm not super on my game at the streaming thing today, so bear with me. Not in the most hyped up of moods, but like I said, sometimes you just gotta push through. Today's one of those days. There's nothing too strenuous going on. We keep adding to my workload, and I don't know. There's just a lot of things I'm thinking about, that's all. In general, things are good. We're getting some attention on our game. People are being super helpful. I can't thank certain folks enough for how they've reached out to us. Just offering advice. People who've been in the industry tells me we're doing something right, that people will give us the time of day. But there's still a lot of work to be done. Nothing's guaranteed. So we keep plugging away. Plug. Alright, so usually these passes don't take too long because there's only so many spots. We don't want to go nuts with the deep shade. We just want to get in there where it gets really dark and imply that. So we're just about done here. I'm not going to add any... Whoops, that was an accident. I'm not going to add any deep shade. Yeah, scratch that. I'm going to add a little bit. Because this is kind of made up of light almost, which you don't know yet because you haven't seen the other ones. We don't want to get too carried away with shade in here because this is supposed to look like it's all like lit from the inside. It's actually going to be reflecting a lot of yellow light back on this, which we're going to get to later. When I say later, not that far off because this thing's going really fast. Cool. So we're done with our comic book shading. Now we're going to move into our comic book highlighting. Still on my freeform brush, I'm going to pick the white for my soft light, and I'm going to add myself a few more layers. We're going to need about 3 or 4 more. So yeah. So same thing as the shading part. I'm just going to pick my spots where I think the light is hitting directly. Or there's glare. That's another thing with highlighting, like on his visor here. We picture some glare hitting it. And so there's, with my highlights in this style, there's just a lot more like streaky glare lines, I guess. Because this is circular, I'm going to just, aside from that gap there, we're going to pretend that there's a big circular highlight there. We're going to smooth all this out a little bit later with the soft brush, but just getting our main patterns down. Again, I'm not being too picky. I kind of purposefully picked an art style that I knew we could do fast. I mean, if I was really wanting to concentrate and spend hours on each piece, we could probably theoretically do a little bit better job with it, but at the end of the day, we don't want to build this game for 20 years. It's already been 5, and that's too long. So we've got a scoped art style that's going to get us through the finish line and be pretty dang cool anyway, I think. And the main reason, maybe if we ever get a chance to, we're just part-time. We got full-time jobs, we got kids, families. If we ever got to do game development full-time, then maybe we could spend a little bit more time on these things. I still think we'd probably just want to make more games, but things we can dream about. So again, I'm not spending a ton of time agonizing over this. I'm thinking about where the light's going to hit. As any good art teacher will tell you, art is pretty much entirely thinking about light and shadow. It's not about drawing. I mean, it can be about drawing lines, but even when you're drawing lines, you're thinking about shadow and everything. So I'm going to lay down our first layer in here. Look at that spring to life. Contrast is everything. As I've paid more attention and self-taught a little bit more, really the most compelling pieces are the ones where the contrast is high, and that means putting your light colors right next to your dark colors. And it's something kind of subconsciously I was kind of afraid to do early on as an artist, but it's super important because that's where not everything needs to be a perfect blend. Contrast is super important. Now, I got a decision to make. I don't know what I'm going to want to do with all these lines. Do I want them to be... I think I'm just going to make them entirely light because they're motion lines. I'm probably actually going to make them full on white, but for now we'll do this. So like I say, when you butt up your light against your darks, that's when you really see cool things happen. So now we're going to go back through. Well, maybe not. I don't think I really have any super highlights. Yeah, we're going to stop there. I am going to add some hard. We're going to change this one to a hard light, which in this case it's really just going to make a white. But since this thing's kind of glowing, we're going to add another layer, really get some contrast in here. And this is just really showing that, and I know it doesn't look great yet, but it will in a second, I promise. Trust in the process. We're going to make this thing look like it's totally internally lit. It's like a plasma effect. Like the drill is, it's 3D, but it's kind of being generated kind of like a Green Lantern ring sort of thing. All right, so I promised I'd show how this is going to come to life. How we're going to do that is we're going to go back to we're actually going to not have our black lines here. I'm going to copy that layer, and we're going to put an effect on that. We're going to go back to our gold, and we're going to blend that gold. So we're going to do a color overlay on this layer of hard light. And you can see what that did to my drawing. You know, I don't want all these things to be lit up, but this drill is looking nice and cool now. So what I want to do instead is I'm going to alt-click this mask icon. It's going to mask it all back away of black, and then I'm just going to paint back in with my hard brush where I want that effect to take place. And this is the true power of masks. And we're just going to make it all black. I'm going to clean up those edges in a second. But you can see now we've got the hard black here paired with the almost glowing here, and there's still more glow we're going to do here. But you can see it has a pretty cool effect there. So I'm going to go back and clean up this mask just a touch. So anytime I paint with white on a mask, I'm telling it to show what's underneath. Anytime I paint with black, which is what I'm going to do now, I'm telling it to go back and hide that again. So it's a great non-destructive way to work with your art. You're never like erasing anything and starting over. You can... oops, I keep hitting the wrong thing. You know, you can mess with it back and forth until you're happy with it. I'm going to do the same thing here, only I'm going to start with a white. And what I've noticed, especially when there's a lot of it, sometimes that black that's sitting behind there can still be visible a little bit, and it just looks cleaner and more glowy if I get rid of it. So I'm going to switch back to black and get rid of it. So you can see those lines kind of smooth out there. That's what I'm after. I'm actually going to turn that off so I can see what I'm doing here. Turn it back on in a second and things will be great. So you can see underneath my art isn't that cool looking. It's just how you work with the different layers. Digital art is just making the layers work together in a way that creates a pleasing result. Still no viewers. It's okay. Alright, we turn it back on. We got a pretty clean look here. I'm just going to check here. Looks like we lost a little bit of black, so I'm going to bring that back again with my white. So I'm just making sure we get that refined edge right down where the transition happens. There we go. So now we're looking pretty good. Now we're getting into the even more fun stuff. And that's going to be our airbrush. So the first thing we're going to do is I like to pick a soft brush, opacity at 100, but pen pressure on opacity, 25% flow with an airbrush, and still this whole time we've had our size pen pressure adjusted. So we're going to make don't be afraid with the airbrush, you want to get your brush nice and big because it's going to paint on pretty light. So you want to get the right size that's in scale with your drawing, but you don't want to go too small or you end up just creating more lines. We're going for a blend here. So we can see, I screwed it up already. Let's just delete that layer, I don't need it. I need to set myself to black first. There we go. So we're going to take black, and you can see as I add the black, it's just going to kind of blend that. The more I press, and I've got total control over the pressure here. Because we're soft light, it's just going to take that and blend it a bit and just soften. I'm going to get smaller here because his face features are smaller. But for most of this, I'm going to blow it up nice and big. I'm going to leave some. I'm not going to go right to the edge because you leave a little bit of, when I say reflected light. It looks really cool when you do that. Again, for smaller areas, it's okay to make it smaller, but if I did a small area in your hair, it would stick out like a sore thumb. So just going to be careful. These nice circular shapes is really where you want to, this is where you really start to make it feel more 3D. And it's going to be really cool when we come in with the highlights here too in a second. So again, I'm mostly just following where I did my shading before. I might add in a little bit here and there. But pretty much we're just trying to, it's a blend. You're going over, you're not sticking within your lines, you're blending between the lines, so to speak. This really gives a polished look, which is of course what we're after. Alright, how are we doing here? I'm going to add a little bit of this. Again, I'm going to be a light touch, but we're going to add a little bit to our drill. Not a lot of shading. Mostly just under there. That's probably enough. I don't want to get carried away. Okay, same thing with our white. We're going to switch over to white. And first place I'm going to go is right in here. I'll really make that screw head come to life. Nice and big. We're going to come a little bit smaller with the rest. I didn't go crazy with how big my highlights were, so again, we're trying to imply volume. This makes the light never a little bit more realistic. We don't want super real, but I like combining these techniques. Got a really saturated red, so the highlights don't pick up super well, but it's okay. Alright, that's most of our, I should probably hit up a little bit in there. We're going to do some more in here. Again, we want people to see the hard edges, but a little bit of blend isn't a bad thing. Just adds to the overall effect. So you might say we're pretty close to being done. There's a couple things I want to do yet. One is to add a little bit of texture, and the other is, we'll do the texture first because the last thing I'll do will really be a wow factor. So on our texture here, kind of the path I've blazed with this is Chaotic Fear's been here. Man, you're my mainstay here. So what I kind of do is I want to give it that kind of brushed metal look, almost like stainless steel, and I'm kind of cheating a little bit because I could get really carried away and use up a lot of time if I wanted to do this, but I cheat and I just do so I fill in a black soft light layer, then I do a filter where we add as much noise as I can, which is 400%. You can see it kind of breaks everything up, and then I add a motion blur to that. And how I'm cheating is I'm just going to do I do this back 45 degree I don't know, it just gives a nice little almost crosshatched look to it. If I was doing it realistically, I'd probably have all kinds of different angles. I'd agonize over each little area and what angle the sheet metal should be in. But I find that this 45, if I paint it back in right, it kind of looks cool. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to leave it. I'm going to mask all that out by hitting Alt and give me a black mask, and then I'm going to paint back in with my soft brush again in areas that I just want to add some of that back. So I don't see any right now, but as I paint in on my mask, it comes in where I want it to. So I want it all in here, but generally I try to go a little heavier in the shaded areas. It's almost like you can see more of the texture when the shade is hitting the more lit up spot. That's not a hard rule or anything, but again, for variance, I'm painting with a brush because I don't want to show it everywhere. If we just show it everywhere, it looks very obviously like I just threw a pattern over it, which I did, but if we take it just one minor step further, it almost looks like maybe I did it all by hand. Just getting the most from your time investment. Again, under here is where I'll do more. I'm not going to go crazy with it elsewhere. I'm going to be really careful with this area because we're trying to make that look like it's kind of something a little different. It's not the hard metal that everything else is. Like I said, it's okay to use. It's not strictly meant for shadow, but I might go a little bit harder with pen pressure in the shadow like I just did there. If we don't connect all the dots, so to speak, if you don't have it everywhere, it looks a little more intentional. All right, we're almost there. I'll probably keep this one brief. We'll probably just do this one for now. Maybe I'll stream later on today and try another guy, but like I said, I'm just pushing through the pain today. Not really feeling it, but we're getting stuff done anyway. So that's looking pretty good. The last thing I want to do, which is going to be really cool, is I'm going to take another soft brush. And because this is glowing, we want to take our color here, and we want to... Oh, actually, I should have... We might have two more things to do, now that I think about it. Decisions. All right, I'm going to try one thing. What do I want to do? So I did one yesterday. Might as well open that up. This guy. So if you saw my trailer this morning, you'll see I did this guy. And what I'm agonizing over is, so we've got two things going on. We've got a hard, oh, that's up here. So I did some soft brush, which you can see, the yellow. So that's on which layer? This layer? So that's what I was going to do. And then I forgot. I actually have a hard layer, too, of shading. So I should probably do that. So let's go do that. Probably should be consistent with these things. So I'm actually going to need two more layers. So the first one, again, it's soft light. I may change it. So over here, sometimes with these light up things, I guess I did change it. I put this one above the black lines so that you could see it would affect the black overlines because it's a light source. Sometimes I like to play it a little bit differently with these and have it affect the black too. So you can see this black almost turns a little bit red. Also, I noticed that I screwed things up with this. Because I'm above the black, I don't have a mask, and you can see I kind of let too much of it hang out there. So with this one, I actually did vivid light, and I did vivid light on both. Sometimes I do linear. If I'm really trying to get contrast on this stuff, I could do soft light, but it's not going to be as dramatic. Some of these, we want drama. So sometimes I'll even do pin light. That looks good too. Actually, I think I like pin light better. And what about this one? Does that look good with pin light? No, I don't like Oops. I don't like the pin light there. I definitely want the yellow light coming through, so this is why I don't string decisions, because decisions is what take the hard part. I try to stick to the stuff that's gonna be easy and I can no-brainer through. Well, I'm not gonna mess at all with what I did yesterday. I'm just not gonna save it. We'll make that decision another time, but I am going to lay in some stuff here. So the first thing, just to do it in order, my order, I'm going to do the freeform vector layer first. So again, we want to think about where this light is hitting. Certainly it's going to be hitting the underside of this screw head. And what did I do? I've got soft light, that's what. So we'll start with linear light, at least then I'll be able to see it for sure, and we'll make a decision on that in a little bit. So what you want to do when you're trying to create light effects is you're just trying to think about how it's hitting all these different surfaces, and it's not hitting them all equally. So it's nice to leave lots of gaps. It's the cumulative effect of seeing. I'm not going to the edges on these things. Sometimes I am, but at this point, if I was doing it totally right, I'd probably have done my shadows differently, and because this light's affecting it, but I'm not claiming to be totally right. This is not a real world, so again, we're doing what looks cool. And we're just trying to envision where that light's going to hit. I mean, this yellow is going to light it up quite a bit anyway, so you might not even know that that shadow was there in the first place, but you can see the more of it that I do, the more it looks like there's really like a fire in front of them, which is what we want. That's what we're going for. Well, I'm glad I'm your new Saturday morning entertainment. Chaotic. Like I said, I at least got the streaming settings right, so I hope this video actually shows up after the fact, that maybe some folks will get a chance to see me that way. When I say some folks, pretty much just the folks that I tell to go check it out. Like I said, I got no major plans to become a streamer or anything, but as long as I'm doing the art anyway, if somebody can learn from it or be just entertained by it, all the better. I'm not feeling the super entertainer portion of it today, but it is what it is. Alright, do I like that? Should I have more? That's not bad. Okay, so now we're going to finally get back to what I thought I was doing earlier, and that's just this airbrush on our yellow. Yeah, and I'm set with all my stuff, so I might play with... You can just see it helps blend it. I might play with the blending modes more because I'm not sure if this is enough for... Oh, it's still soft light, that's why. So I probably actually need to ease up from what I was doing there if I go one of these. Should I do pin light? Decisions. Vivid, linear, hard. So I'm either going to do... I could do soft light, but it's not going to pair as well. Let's try pin light for now. And what did I think I want vivid. I don't know. Let's try that. Gives a little bit more red, though. Well, I'm going to turn it to vivid, at least while I'm painting. What's going on? Alright, I think I like that linear. I want to just start over on this. We barely got started. Let's pick Vivid. Yeah, there we go. So that's pretty good. Oh yeah, I like that. I'm just being careful. When I was working with soft light, I was putting a lot of pressure on because I wasn't getting much effect, which is what soft light does. It's soft, but now that I'm going with something a little more punchy, I'm trying to ease up ever so slightly. He's probably got a little bit in here. You can see it really just amplifies things quite a bit. I really like that. Ooh, yeah, that's nice. I don't really, let's see, what would it look like? I don't really need to do much on the drill itself, but I guess I'll lighten up a couple spaces in here just for variance. There. How are we doing? I'm going to add, oh, that's too dark. I'll just go nice and easy and add a little bit there. We're going to back out, see how we're doing. I'm liking it. Anything else I want to do here? I think I'm pretty good. So like I said, we're going to take it nice and easy today. I think that's about all I'm going to do on stream this morning. So just to recap, we kind of went from something that looked like this. If I disable that layer mask, we went from this. Then we filled in our colors one by one. So back here all the way from the start. So we added our gray, then our light gray. So satisfying to see it this way. Then we added our red. We were done with our flats. Then we started adding one layer of shade, two layer of shade, one layer of highlight, some hard light. Then we went and added our drill color. And then we started with some soft shade, some soft highlight. We added our texture. And then we added some hard light, yellow light, and then some soft light yellow light to get that effect. And that's our finished drawing. We will export that and be able to use it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll do it again. See ya.